If you're into co-op roguelites, I have a game that you should put on your radar. Umigame is an upcoming indie game made by two brothers at Nimble Game Studio based in France. And side note, one of the brothers used to be a semi-pro League of Legends player. I think that's kind of interesting. I'll be super transparent. I received an email with some Steam keys and a press kit from Antoine, one of the brothers, back in May. He didn't specifically ask me to make a video, just that I would wait to make any kind of content until after June 2nd when the demo was officially released. And well, it's well after June 2nd, so I think I'm good on that front. I've put about 3 hours into the game. I've played as every available character. I've used every turret in the game, which is something I'll get to. I've beat both bosses that are available in the demo, and I have to say, very broadly, I really like it. I think it's a very enjoyable game. I like covering indie games for a lot of reasons, but mainly because these developers put so much time and energy into their game, their vision, that they really don't have. They're probably working full-time jobs. These developers aren't, but a lot of devs are. They do this kind of stuff on the side. So I love covering games, talking about them, seeing what's great, what can change, what's going to change, and helping a game find the audience that it needs to really cement itself as a great entry into whatever genre that these developers are creating for. In Umigame, you have 4 characters that you can play as: an axe-wielding warrior named Olaf, Lyra, the long-range bow expert, Rend, a short-range dagger assassin, and Pearl, a master of wizardry. As you set out into the haunted swamp, you can use your Omnicore to enlist the help of certain plants to use as turrets, and they all have their own upgrade paths. The demo has 2 bosses, the Watchers and Maeve, and each area has unique enemies and NPCs and other atmospheric storytelling elements. Something that's interesting to me is that the devs have talked about who their target audience is for the game. They have quite a few bullet points, but I'll distill it down to a few that I think are the most important. First, they don't want you to feel like you have to be a pro gamer. They want this to be accessible to people who just enjoy video games and like having fun. And I think that's a very great approach, especially for a genre like roguelites, which sometimes can feel a little unapproachable, especially if you've never played a game like this before. But if you have played a game like this before, they want you around. They specifically cited games like Hades and The Binding of Isaac as games that, if you like those, you'll probably like Umigame. And then possibly the most unique aspect of their target audience is people who enjoy tower defense games. Now, when I was first playing this demo, I didn't really register that the turrets kind of mimic some tower defense mechanics, but they absolutely do. And in some of the boss fights, I've used the turrets to just let me focus on dodging and making sure I don't die so that I can be ready for the next part of the game. And that's an incredible mechanic that I do think is super unique to the game and can provide a lot of depth to combat styles that other roguelites might not have. I've said before that I think demos should be compelling. They should make me want to spend money to buy a full game, or even make me want to spend money to be a part of the game's early access. Another game that's in early access that I've spent 180 hours in is Hades 2, so I am no stranger to spending money to be a part of the development of a game. And to put it briefly, I think Umigame accomplishes all of those things for me. But before I talk about the things that I really liked about this demo, I want to touch on the things that I can't wait to see change getting ready for the early access in 2025. This is a no-brainer, but of course, I'm excited to see what bugs get fixed before the early access comes out. I've come across a few when playing, like the pause menu not working correctly, a kind of a crazy crash bug that I only experienced once when playing, and a few other little UI things that I would see one off in one random room but wouldn't see anywhere else. So things that over time, as more people play, and hit F8 to report a bug, they can kind of squash out, and when early access comes, it'll be much more enjoyable and a much smoother gaming experience. But bugs, I mean, they're common. Every game is going to have bugs. That's just the way it goes, especially an indie game where you're coding as you go and you just have to see what breaks when you add something new. That's completely acceptable, and we understand that as gamers. The biggest thing they should fix before early access is the sound engineering in the game. Now, don't get me wrong, they are working on this, proven by this Discord message that they've sent, but it is one of those things that is core to the enjoyment of the game, especially if you're wearing headphones. But there are certain moments where the audio is just a little too loud. It's not balanced correctly, specifically when your attacks are ready. There's a pretty loud audio cue that just doesn't sound good in my ear. I had to play with my headphones like this so that I could still hear other parts of the game, because if I was wearing my headphones, I couldn't get over that just like peaking noise. They're working on that, but that is the biggest negative that I have for the game right now. I do not think it's worth not playing over, but I do think it's something that needs to be prioritized before early access comes out. I do think they could spend some time polishing the dialogue UI. I don't think it looks bad, but the text sometimes, like, letters will be missing, words will be misspelled, or there'll be spaces missing between like periods in the next sentence. So that's little things, but I was taking the time to read what these characters were saying, so I noticed them, and I know other players will do that too, especially with a game like this. So I think it would be worth their time to just scan over, you know, all of their dialogue options that they have in their code and make sure that whatever it's sourcing from is inputted correctly so that it shows up correctly in the game. And then I think this will come over time with just working on the game, but some visual and audio clarity during combat would be really great. Like I said, that's going to develop, but specifically with audio, I think each weapon, or at least each attack style, could have an audio cue to help with combat so that you can focus on everything else that's happening, because you're managing your Omnicore, managing your skills, you're dodging enemies. There's a lot going on, and that's the kind of the nature of these games. So adding in ways to provide depth to the experience, I think, can never be a bad thing, ever. That's my personal opinion. As far as visual clarity, this was brought up by a few people in their Discord, but there are some moments where you're attacking with your character, or maybe even trying to anticipate your enemy's attacks, that they're not diversified visually, but that's something that'll come over time. I don't think any of the things I just said are reasons not to pick up the demo, but I did want to talk about them because I noticed them while playing, and anyone who plays a lot of these games would probably notice it too. And I didn't want you to feel like after watching this video, if you went to play the game, that I slighted you in any way by not talking about things that I noticed that could be fixed and are definitely in the works of being fixed. But that was just my prerogative. I do want to get to talking about the things that I think are really great about this demo and this game. Right up top, I think the atmosphere of this game is really cool. Being in a haunted swamp with swamp creatures and you're walking around in the water, I think that's just a really fun visual identity for this kind of game to have. And I'm hoping over time we'll see a lot more interaction between the ambient world and each individual run. Another thing that I'm really liking so far are the story elements that I'm seeing. This is a demo, so we don't get the full taste of everything, but there are elements like the stone forge, and when you talk to the armor upgrade dude, he talks about the heartbeat of the mountain, or, you know, asking if you can hear it too coming from within the mountain. I think that's a really interesting story element, and I'd love to see where that goes. I also think the NPCs that you get to interact with really do a good job at hyping up that the haunted swamp is not a great place. You're going out there of your own free will, and not good things are going to happen. Bad things are on the way. One thing that could be fun, and I'm not trying to step on the storytelling they're trying to do, because that, even more so than gameplay mechanic, is their own creation. But one thing I like about roguelikes is when they have a storytelling explanation for why you respawn. Hades does this very well. And I'm sure other roguelites, not off the top of my head, do it well too. But I want to see a really strong story reasoning for the reason that we can go into the swamp, die, and come back. That's just a personal opinion. Like I said, I don't want to step on their storytelling, but I do think that is just a fun aspect of these kinds of games, and it could be a cool thing to bake into the core of your story. In that same vein of story elements, I'm excited to see how the playable characters are baked into that. I really enjoy them. I've spent the most time playing as Olaf and Pearl, the axe wielder and the wizard, but I think all of them are very fun to play as. If I were to order them by easiest to hardest to play as, I would say Pearl's the easiest. She has high damage output and long range. I would say that Olaf's the next with a melee build, but he has high damage output, and the axe is pretty good for handling a lot of enemies at once. Rend is up next with really quick damage output, and he's a fun, fast character to play as. And then Lyra would be in the back for me, just because I feel like her damage output is not as high, and if I'm gonna play a ranged character, I'll just play Pearl instead. But if you enjoy the difficulty and you want to see what kind of builds you can do with the bow, then definitely play as Lyra. Another core mechanic that I really enjoy is the Omnicore. I said I was going to talk about the turrets, and I'm definitely going to. I think they're a really interesting combat mechanic for this style of game. Right now there's 4 of them, and I've used all of them. I think my favorite are the little dragon fire thing, and then the little stone kind of totem pole looking guy. I think those not only look cool, but they've done the best in my different runs. I will say the tower defense mechanic is something that's really interesting for games like this, especially when bosses have really quick attack patterns, things that might be a little harder to dodge and get attacks in without taking massive amounts of damage that would kind of ruin the rest of your run. So having this element where you can just really focus on bosses' move patterns, stay alive, and rely on your Omnicore and the turrets to take them out over time is really cool. I don't think it's cheesy. I think you definitely have to earn it. If you just, you know, mess around, you will get killed by these bosses. They attack quickly. The first guy has a bunch of lasers and stuff, so you have to run around. I mean, there's definitely elements to it that make it a little more difficult, that you can't have full control of damage output by using your own weapon, but these turrets make it super interesting. I'm excited to see where they go in the future, because this is a pretty cool element that I said earlier could add a lot of combat depth to this game. I mentioned the Omnicore, and I think that's also a pretty cool mechanic. You send it out to raise up your turrets, and as they deal damage, it charges your Omnicore, and then you can use a skill. Right now, it's just overpowered that lets you deal increased damage, but they have plans to add a few different skills, and I have a few that I think are my favorite. I'm looking at it right now, and one that they have is called Healing Zone. Now, remember, this is online co-op, so having a healing ability that can heal you and your teammates is huge, especially for some of these bosses where they kind of can do a lot of damage if you're not being super careful. Another one they have is called Spectral Mobility, which, as you can probably tell, is all about your movement, has increased dashes, increased movement speed. I think that's another one that could be really fun, not only in co-op, but alone, getting out of an enemy's attack range and things like that. That could be really crucial to make sure you don't take devastating hits. They have other ones in here that are really area of effect based or explosion based, and I want to give two opinions based on these Omnicore skills that I think are pretty valid, but I'd love to hear your opinion on these two. Number one, I think, if possible, I'm not the one coding this game, some of these effects are going to be a lot more useful than others, or at least are going to have way heavier effects depending on your playstyle. So I don't think they should all be charged at the same rate. Now, again, I'm not a developer, so I don't know all the code that would go into that. If that's not something that's easily done right now, then okay, we can wait, whatever. But I do think some of these can wait. Like Spectral Mobility, that's a cool and useful thing, but it doesn't have a lot of uses besides just getting away. I don't think that should take very long to charge. Healing Zone, though, depending on how much you're healing, I think that should take a little bit longer to charge. Another opinion / suggestion I have for these Omnicore skills is if you have a lot of area of effect explosion skills, you're going to give your players like option fatigue. You should condense all those down to one and then really let yourself pine over creating super unique ways for people to create builds. Maybe you can add in different sub upgrades for these skills that kind of touch on the different area of effect explosions you want to do. Like one reads that the explosions happen around the player every few seconds, and another says that it grows as you take damage and then explodes. I think this is something that can be layered into the same skill with different upgrades, like upgrade trees, instead of creating 10 skills that all do just about the same thing. But beyond that, I truly think this game has a lot of pieces that are going to make it a super fun title to pick up, not only in early access, but as a full game. And what's even better is the devs aren't looking to charge a crazy amount for this game. The last thing I saw on the Discord was 15 to 20 pounds. I think that's pretty good. You know, it's about the same. It's about $15 to $20 ish, just about. That's not bad for a game that's eventually going to have like 8 playable characters, 4 bosses, 50 something enemies, a bunch of skills, a bunch of turrets. Like, that's not bad. That's a lot of content for not a lot of game, especially a game like this that's by design incredibly replayable. And if they add in elements like New Game Plus or something like Hades where you can ramp up the difficulty of your runs by crazy to get crazy returns, I think this game has legs. So many legs, many legs, can run very far into the future and give these devs something to work on that can build a large community around them. So with all that said, if you have an afternoon, grab the demo. I will link Nimble Games Studios webpage down below, as well as the Steam store page for the demo, so that you can go download it and tell me what you think about the game, or more importantly, join their Discord and tell them what you think about the game, because they have a great idea on their hands. They have a product and they're moving towards release in Q2 of next year, which would be like March, April, May, June-ish, somewhere over there in 2026. So that's not that far away. So get in while you can now so that you can have maybe an effect on how this game turns out. A few notes for you guys. I'll have some footage uploaded with no commentary so you can scrub really quickly and look at different characters and see how they play against different bosses and things like that, so that you can decide if these kind of characters are something you would want to go play as. Another thing, wishlist games. If you find a video game that you really like, it's in demo or it's getting ready for early access, wishlist it. Let the devs know that you're excited about the game. It's a good, important metric for devs to track, the size of their prospective audience. And it also is a great motivation factor for devs. And I really think that wishlisting a game like this is super easy to do if you're even somewhat interested, but a huge impact for the developer. So please consider wishlisting games that you're super interested in. And lastly, if you're an indie developer, send me your game. I would love to try it out and make some commentary on it if I really think it's great, or if I have a lot of suggestions for how a game can improve. And I don't want a free copy of your game if it costs money. I'll pay for it. I just want to know that it exists so that I can play it and pick it up, because that's the biggest challenge with creating and developing a game beyond making the game. You have to be able to market it, and something I like to do is play video games and make YouTube videos. So why not best of both worlds and spend a little bit of my time helping you guys get your games that you're working really, really hard on out there in front of the audience that might just love it. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you'd be so kind to do the YouTube trio of liking, commenting, and subscribing, I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.